Raider Nation, good morning. It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report, with some news that's going to make you think. I tweeted out last night that I was going to drop some news today here on the program, and I promise you, I will drop some news today on the show. And to make sure you're always staying up to date, make sure you hit that subscribe button, make sure those notifications are turned on, because I'm telling you this right now, today could be a really, really big day for the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm also going to get into the latest Raiders head coaching rumors, some of the people that we have requested to interview, some of the people that we might still interview on today's program. But when I went to bed last night, I was told something, and I got home at about 10:30 after the AFC-NFC championship games. I looked at my wife and I go, you know what, I'm going to make this video tomorrow morning. So I thought about doing it late last night, but this is why hopefully you guys hit that subscribe button, because I guarantee you this, you're going to learn something today. So let's first talk about the Raiders head coaching rumors that are going on, and I'm going to end this video with something that I was told by a source that every single member of Raider Nation should care about very much. So let's first start here with the recent Raiders head coaching rumors and news. If you didn't see the Silver and Black, they interviewed Joe Brady, the Bills offensive coordinator, for their head coaching job. The more and more I start talking to people around the NFL, and the more I start reaching out to just some of my own sources, one of my buddies, he works for the Bills organization, and he's always spoke very positively about Brady. But I'll say this: I would be interested in Brady as an offensive coordinator, and sometimes you got to sit back and you got to look at the bigger picture. And you look at the Bills; they have a head coaching job open. If your own team isn't willing to hire you, I think me as a Raiders organization, we got to sit back and we got to go, all right, they got the best quarterback in the NFL in Josh Allen. Josh Allen has spoke positively about Joe Brady. Brady's been with that organization for quite some time. So now I'm going to sit back and I'm going to go, well, if the Bills don't want him, why should we want him? And if they end up going in a different direction, we will see whatever direction that might end up being in. But to me, Joe Brady is somebody that I am now looking at as more as I'll take him as an offensive coordinator if we bring in a defensive-minded head coach, but to make him just the outright head coach, there are just so many other candidates that I would rather hire, because I think if you're going to roll the dice with Joe Brady, I think you're better off just rolling the dice with Davis Webb. All right, so let's go to the next thing here. This is coming in from Vincent Bonsignore. He talked about this over the weekend, and this has not been reported by anybody out there, and I'll always say, you take every single report from a Raiders beat reporter with a grain of salt. You just have to do it. It sucks, but that's the world that we live in with our Raiders beat writers. So for Vincent Bonsignore, he did report that the Raiders were going to show some interest in Chris Shula, the defensive coordinator for, obviously, the Los Angeles Rams, who lost yesterday to the Seattle Seahawks. Again, this has not been reported by anybody. The reason why I do find it interesting is because timing is everything in the NFL. So when the news came out that Brian Daboll was going to have an interview with the Raiders, that instantly was like, okay, I'm thinking about that. And I bring that up because the first time we really heard Daboll's name was in connection to Brian Flores. Brian Flores, head coach candidate. Brian Daboll would have been the OC. After the Raiders reached out to players, people inside of other organizations, they realized that Flores wasn't going to be the right guy for their job because they were worried that he wasn't going to be able to build the staff that this Raiders team just so desperately needs, because he burned, a lot of bridges. It's just the truth. So then the news comes out from Bonsignore that, hey, the Raiders could show some interest in Chris Shula. Vinny even went along to said he expects an interview with them. But to me, I sit back and I go, all right, well, the Raiders obviously were interested in hiring Jesse Minter. He was their number one guy that they were looking at. Obviously, Minter takes the Ravens job. But if you're looking at Minter, that means you're already okay hiring a defensive-minded head coach. But then it's the importance of being able to find that offensive coordinator. So I'm not saying what Vinny's saying is totally wrong. I just think that the timing of it all is a little bit interesting, that the Brian Daboll news comes out that, hey, the Raiders have requested to interview Daboll. Then Vinny puts out, well, hey, also could be Chris Shula. I do wonder if one of the Raiders' plans is to bring in Shula to be your head coach, and then maybe you're able to have a Brian Daboll as your offensive coordinator. But again, if I'm the Buffalo Bills and I'm kind of sitting back and I'm in the situation that I'm in where I can't interview a lot of these coaches this week, and I'll explain why here in a little bit, because only second interviews are allowed this week, and for a lot of teams that fired their head coach later, like the Bills did, you can't bring in a Clint Kubiak this week. So I just wanted to throw that out there, and actually literally at this moment that I am making this video, Jaguars OC Grant Udinski has removed himself from consideration from the Browns job. That's shocking. And the reason why I say that that's shocking is because our Browns guy here, he was kind of thinking that Udinski was going to be the next head coach of the Cleveland Browns. I don't know what direction that organization is going to go in. I kind of feel bad for Browns fans out there because, again, bad organizations stay bad. But, I saw the news that Cleveland was reaching out to Tom Telesco to help them figure out their coaching search. I'm not trying to sit up here and rip apart Tom Telesco because, again, he was the Raiders GM for 1 year. He was with the Chargers for 10-plus years. But there's that old saying, bad organizations stay bad. And that's the reason. I'm not saying that Telesco is this awful past GM, but he's failed in 2 different organizations. So, if you're the Browns, why the hell am I going to bring in a guy who failed at the quarterback position? Why am I going to bring in a guy like that? And somebody who's clearly hasn't done a good job picking out the right head coaches for an organization. So, wow, Grant Udinski has removed himself from consideration, and he's going to remain, I guess, as the Jaguars OC unless he gets a potential head coaching job. Let's now go to Clint Kubiak. Now, obviously, Kubiak is the name that I think a lot of Raiders fans are wanting. Our Seahawks fan guy, he just walked in literally 20 minutes ago. We were shooting the shit. And he was like, that's one of the best games I've ever seen him. And Tom Brady was front row and center calling that game, seeing Kubiak go in his bag. Because when you get a quarterback like Sam Darnold, I'm not saying Sam Darnold and Fernando Mendoza are the exact same. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is the confidence that Clint Kubiak showed in a guy like Darnold is the exact type of coach that you want with a rookie quarterback. What do I mean by that? A guy that's going to design beautiful plays to get the ground game going. And early on in that game, they got Kenneth Walker going. They said, we're going to feed Walker. He got the hot hand. You got to tip your cap to the Rams. I think they did a really good job trying to take Walker, out of the game a little bit later on. But then that meant Sam Darnold got to get it cooking. You get the play action going. And at the end of the day, I want a young, innovative head coach that's willing to ride and die with his quarterback. And that's what Clint Kubiak did yesterday with Darnold. There were so many situations you're like, all right, they're going to run out the clock and then fake handoff. Darnold's rolling out, completed the ball to JSN. When you see how open JSN gets on a regular basis, that is, yes, Jackson Smith-Njigba is arguably the best wide receiver in the National Football League. But, you don't get as open as he gets without a brilliant offensive coordinator at the realm. JSN's not getting 10 to 15 yards of nobody else around him. You know why he's getting that open? Because Clint Kubiak was in his bag yesterday, and he was really opening it up. And I know that there's a lot of Raiders fans out there that are like, hey, Clint Kubiak's my number one guy. I'm going to say this right now. The news that I was told yesterday, I don't know if Kubiak's the number one guy for the Las Vegas Raiders. So Spotrac put this out, and I thought this was interesting. And again, today's show is going to make you think. I guarantee that. You're going to be wondering, oh my God, what's going to happen today? So this is from Spotrac. Super Bowl bye week interviews are only allowed if the interviewing team has already held a previous interview with that candidate. So the Raiders, they interviewed Clint Kubiak on Friday, January 9th. And the interviews that ended up happening in that time was Davis Webb was on Wednesday, and then it was Kevin Stefanski, Vance Joseph, Matt Nagy was on Thursday. Clint Kubiak was the only interview on Friday, and everybody that I talked to told me that interview with Kubiak has gone very, very well and went very well. So now, initial interviews must wait until February 9th. So do you remember when I was talking about the Bills? If you're the Buffalo Bills and you're sitting back wondering, hey man, do I want to bring in Clint Kubiak? You got to wait until February 9th. The reason why today's show is going to make you think is I don't know if the Raiders want to wait until February 9th. What if they already want to get the ball rolling? What if they already want to get some OCs, some DCs? They want to start getting this team together. And what if Clint Kubiak waits until February 9th? And then what if he chooses another destination? I mean, I'll be real. I do think the Buffalo Bills job is the best job out there because you get to work with Josh Allen. But also at the exact same time, I think the Kubiak offense works better with what we got. And maybe that's just me, putting my Raiders goggles on a little bit. But I do think that that's something that you got to consider if you're the Raiders, Clint Kubiak, and everything that's in the mix here. So keep it going here with this Spotrac tweet. Potential coaching candidates on the Seahawks and Patriots will be eligible for virtual interviews from January 26th to February 1st. So I'm going to tell you all this right now. If you're sitting back wondering if the Raiders are going to hire Kubiak, it's not going to happen. Like, you're not going to see an organization hire a head coach over a virtual interview. It's not going to happen. I actually think it would be a really bad job by the Raiders, and I think it would be a bad job by Kubiak. And obviously, Kubiak, he's not going to accept a job while he's still going with the Seattle Seahawks. Like, that's literally tampering. Like, you cannot do that. So if you want to hire Kubiak, you're going to have to wait. And you're going to have to wait until February 9th, which, again, I do not know if that's what the Raiders want to do. If they want to submit an interview request for Kubiak, it's going to be a virtual interview, and it's going to be somewhere between January 26th and February 1st. After that, they must wait until February 9th to open up communication or meet in person, and they are not allowed to sign a contract until their season is done. So I want to be very clear here. I was told something that's going to grab your attention. And it's because something that's happening today for the Raiders. And I'm not saying that something is going to happen. I'm saying something is already in motion. And I will tell you what that motion is here in just a little bit. Because where there's smoke, there's fire. You guys know I love saying it. And there is a lot of smoke right now around Davis Webb. So here's my question to you. Do you want the Raiders to hire a head coach now? Do you want them to hire a guy now? Because, again, certain teams can't get into the mix because this week is for second in-person interviews only. And there's a lot of teams that can't do it. The Bills can't do it, right? That's a little bit of an advantage for us. So you got to sit back and you got to go, that helps us out. Do you want the Raiders to wait until February 9th, till after the Super Bowl, to go out and hire Clint Kubiak? Or do you want the Raiders to hire a head coach right now? You're about to get hit with a YouTube ad break. While that ad is playing, I want you to scroll on down and give me your answer. My answer is going to be coming up here after this YouTube ad break. I'm going to sit up here and I'm going to go, if you got to wait until February 9th, Tom, John, you wait until February 9th. The Raiders have been a piss-poor organization for 23 years. This fan base has lost a lot of games for a long time. This organization has lost a lot of games for a lot of time. If you can't wait 2 weeks to get the guy that is the best coaching candidate out there, shame on you. I'm not saying that if you go out and hire somebody today that I'm not going to be excited about it, because I do think Davis Webb is a good coach. But I want to be clear. If everybody inside of your organization believes that Clint Kubiak is the best guy for the job, then you put your chips in the middle of the table and you go out and you try to get them. You can't be afraid of what happened last year. You can't be afraid that Ben Johnson's going to leave, that Mike Vrabel's just going to take the obvious job. The Raiders have a great job opening. You got the number 1 overall pick. You got the top 2 money and salary cap space. Top 3, we're the only team the next 2 years. You got 10 total draft picks. And again, the number 1 overall pick. Go get your guy. If your guy's Kubiak, you go get him. If your guy's Davis Webb, then go get Davis Webb. And the reason why I bring this up is because, again, there's been a lot of rumblings. And there's been a lot of rumblings around Webb. And according to Adam Schefter, the Las Vegas Raiders are expected to meet this week with Broncos pass game coordinator Davis Webb regarding their head coach vacancy. That was reported yesterday before the Denver Broncos game. Here's also what Schefter said. A busy day ahead for Broncos pass game coordinator and quarterback coach Davis Webb. He will, in fact, interview today for the head coaching jobs with the Raiders and the Bills, per source. It is his second interview with the Raiders and his first with the Bills. So his Bills interview is over Zoom. Zoom interview for Davis Webb. Second in-person interview for the Las Vegas Raiders. Here's also what Schefter had to say, that Webb is considered a strong candidate in Las Vegas. Coming up here, I'm going to tell you something that's going to make you think. Coming up here, I'm going to tell you what my source told me late last night, a source that is very well connected with the Las Vegas Raiders. And at the end of the day, there's certain decision makers with this organization. Owners are big-time decision makers with this organization. And I'm going to tell you why you really need to wait and see what this owner is doing today for the Raiders. So coming up here, the news that's going to make you think. Before I get into that, though, shout out to Prize Picks for sponsoring the Raiders Report. The big game It's crazy. I can't believe we only have one game left and the big game is almost here. There's no better way to cash in during America's biggest sporting event than Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. And since the big game is right around the corner, that also means it's your last chance to get into the football action before next season. So close the season out right with Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. On Prize Picks, how you play is up to you. If you want flexibility, choose a flex play where you can get paid even if one of your picks misses. And if you want the biggest payouts, go for the power play. No matter your play, Prize Picks is a great way to put your takes to the test. I went with 2 power plays yesterday, and I came up short in both of them. But you know what? It's all good. And anytime you get to sit back, watch a game with a bunch of people, we had probably over 120,000 people join us yesterday on the Raiders Report. Shout out to you for those games. But the big game's going to be interesting. You got Seattle. You got the New England Patriots. It's a little bit of a rematch game. Shout out to John Schneider, the Seahawks general manager, who became the very first GM in NFL history to be in 2 different Super Bowls with no players on that team. So the Super Bowl you went to earlier, where it was the Malcolm Butler interception, should have ran the ball with Marshawn Lynch, there's no players from that team. Same Super Bowl, or 2 Super Bowls, same organization, with none of the same players. First ever to do it. And you know why I bring that up? Because Seattle made the decision to go with John Schneider over Pete Carroll. Pete wanted way, way too much say. They ended up moving on from Pete. Now they're in the big game. All I'm saying is, why not the Raiders? Why not the Raiders? And why not get started with Prize Picks? So download the Prize Picks app today. Make sure that you use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. All right, you ready for the news that's going to make you think? So I want you to remember, Davis Webb interviewing today for the Raiders. Second interview. That's very, very important. Where there's smoke, there is a lot of fire. And I had a source reach out to me today that said one of the Raiders owners is flying into Las Vegas today in preparation to hire a coach. Pause. Before we get into this anymore, I want to be very clear. The source that I was talking to while we were going through this conversation is like, well, can the Raiders hire Clint Kubiak? I said, no, the Raiders cannot hire Clint Kubiak. And he goes, okay, because I did also hear that Kubiak's name was still being brought up. So then I go, well, that's very interesting to me. And I think that's very interesting to me because I'm not saying that the Raiders are going to hire Davis Webb today. I'm not. If they do end up hiring him, again, where there's smoke, there's fire. But what I do think is important is how serious the Raiders are taking this interview with Broncos quarterback coach and pass game coordinator Davis Webb. That's the important thing because you got an owner who's flying into Las Vegas in preparation for this interview. So you think about one of the Raiders owners and all of the things that are being said about Webb, about how he's a strong candidate, about Schefter's been kind of hinting at things over the past 24 hours. So the fact that the Raiders owner, a Raiders owner, is flying into Las Vegas for this Davis Webb interview, I think we just got to sit back and realize that Davis Webb is such a strong candidate for this job, whether you like it, whether you don't. Now, again, everything I've heard about Webb, he's done a great job developing quarterbacks. I'm going to get you guys a longer video a little bit later on today about why I think the Raiders could end up hiring him because, again, like at this point, I'm starting to think that Davis Webb could get hired today. And I think no matter what, though, the Raiders are really, really strongly considering him. Maybe they want to consider making him the highest paid OC in the National Football League. I was told when they were talking about Mike McDaniel that there was some numbers around Mike McDaniel that were in the $7 to $8 million range. If you're the Raiders, maybe you want to go pay Davis Webb a lot of money to be your offensive coordinator because I don't see Denver moving on from their OC. So if you're Webb, you're going like, oh, wait a minute, man. I want to be able to have a job. I want to be able to call plays in the NFL. And if you're the Raiders, you got money to do it, Mark. Go out and figure out a way to do it. Now, I am clear here. I'm not allowed to tell y'all who the owner is, but all I know is this. Whatever ends up happening today, a Raiders owner is flying into Las Vegas to meet with Davis Webb. That's monstrous. Monstrous, monstrous, monstrous. And the other reason why I bring this up is because the video that I did over the weekend, I want to say it was on Friday, I think the video was titled like Best News Ever. I spoke with a source, and my source spoke to a Raiders owner. Okay? And that source made it very clear that the Raiders want to hire a young, offensive, innovative head coach. The more and more they started explaining to me who that coach was, now they told me that they thought it was Mike LaFleur. And if you don't, again, you can go back, watch my show on Friday. It's a 45-minute one. It's a long one. But they told me that they thought that it was Mike LaFleur. And I said in that video, and I'm going to say it again today, based on everything that they told me, I was sitting there going, I think it's Davis Webb. I think it's Davis Webb. Everything that you're telling me is Davis Webb. Because one of the things that I've often said on this show is I want a young, innovative head coach. I want the next Sean McVay. When Sean McVay was hired, a lot of people thought it was too early. People were like, man, who's this young guy? He's coming into the league. What the heck? Became the youngest head coach ever to go into a Super Bowl at 33 years old. Davis Webb's 30, 31 years old. He's got an amazing track record with quarterbacks. And apparently the plan that he put in front of the Raiders in that first interview that he had on January 7th, Wednesday, was outstanding. And I heard that John Spytek was blown away. I heard that Tom Brady was blown away. I heard that it aligned very much so with a lot of the plans that they have for this organization. So when I hear what I heard Thursday, Friday last week, and I'm going, man, I think that everything that you're telling me is Davis Webb, Davis Webb, Davis Webb. Schefter has been hitting at the Raiders are very interested in Davis Webb. The very first interview that the Raiders do today is Davis Webb, and they're meeting him in person. And now you got a Raiders owner who's flying in to meet with Davis Webb in person. You know, again, these guys, owners got money. You know, a flight to them is maybe a 2 or 3 hour drive. And I think if you're an organization and you don't have those guys in those big time meetings, shame on you. But the person that is going to be at this interview, the person that is flying in, made it sound to my source that the Raiders were preparing to hire a head coach. The reason why I'm not going to sit up here and say Davis Webb is the next head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders is because I think it would be a bad job to hire Davis Webb without giving Clint Kubiak another shot. Because I don't know how the hell that you watch Clint Kubiak in his bag and arguably one of the best games I've seen an offensive coordinator call and not try to bring that guy in. I get that you might be afraid to get burned like you got burned last year because you missed out on Ben Johnson, you missed out on Mike Vrabel. But again, if there's a guy that you believe in and there's a guy that you want, you got to go out and you got to try to get him. And I think what the Raiders have done in years past is they've settled. And I don't want the Raiders to settle. I want you to go out and get your guy because I don't know if you're going to have another situation like this. I hope you don't. I hope we are never the number one overall pick ever again. I hope there's never a franchise quarterback staring. That's not true. You got a franchise quarterback staring at you. You got the number one overall pick. You have so much to be able to work with this offseason. It's so important that you bring in the right guy. But again, to be clear, where there's smoke, there's fire. My source told me some interesting stuff on Friday. Everything that they were telling me made me think that it was going to be Davis Webb. Adam Schefter's hitting out left and right that the Raiders are very interested in Webb. The Raiders are bringing him in for a second in-person interview today, and a Raiders owner is hopping on a flight to go and make sure that he is there for the Davis Webb interview. That Raiders owner told my source that they were preparing for a potential hire. You can take that however you want it. To me, though, that's Raiders news that's going to make you think. I think Davis Webb would do a good job. There's no doubt it's a risky hire, but sometimes that's what Mark likes to do, a risky hire. And sometimes when you do something that you think is going to work out, sometimes you do the exact opposite. And hiring a 74-year-old head coach in Pete Carroll, I think the opposite, and I literally mean the opposite, of hiring a guy like Pete Carroll is going out and hiring a guy like Davis Webb. Obviously, if the Raiders hire Webb, I'm going to be live on the Raiders Report. I don't care what time of the night it is. I don't care what the snow looks like. I don't care what the ice. You'd have to chop off my arms and legs and rip out my vocal cords for me to not be live here on this show. I am going to get you guys another video here in a little bit about why I think Davis Webb could end up being the Raiders head coach and why he's being so strongly considered. But crazy. And I hope that you appreciate the content that I provide. I hope that you appreciate everything that you're hearing. But again, this is why you should subscribe. Nobody's going to outwork me. Nobody's going to do more for the nation than me. And I say that very humbly because we've built an unbelievable community here on the Raiders Report. So I'll see you guys a little bit later on today. I'll be live tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific, unless the Las Vegas Raiders hired Davis Webb to be their next head coach. If you're looking for even more content from me, you can hit the subscribe button right here. I promise you. You guys already know. I got you up to date. I got you covered. If you want even more videos, you can click on this bad boy here, or you can click on this one here. Essentially, YouTube's going to recommend that, hey, if you enjoyed this video, you're going to like one of those. I'll see you guys later. Enjoy your Monday, and we'll see if Davis Webb ends up getting hired.